I think it's time we talked sponsorship. Welcome to another Race Driver Coach Show. And yet I realized we haven't spoken about sponsorship yet this season. So I thought, let's do it before it gets too far, because a lot of people here, a lot of people that have subscribed, thank you everybody, are here because they're struggling to get the cash to race. They really want to race. It's in there. It's the passion. It's all they want out of life. But this sport has a massive hurdle, and it is called cash. It's a pay-to-play sport. It's not like just going down the park and kicking a football around and getting a kick from that, or becoming a sprinter or a tennis player, which, you know, all this stuff still costs money, but motorsport takes the mick. We're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions per year, that as a driver, you have to put in order to pay a race team to run your car and to enter the championship. And it is twisted. Nobody in the sport really wants it to be that way, but it's just the way it is, because cars, motor sport, are expensive. Race cars are even more expensive. They break. You need people to run them. There's 11 people in an F2 team, right? And each of them is on a wage. It's going to be a good wage. And they need to make profit as a company. And they have to pay the championship. They have to get all the parts in. They have to have a workshop. They have to pay for that. So it's a big money. So when you're pouring millions into running just one car, believe me, the team are not actually making that much money. If they're breaking even in an F2 team, and you're really hard to believe this from the outside, but an F2 team, if they're breaking even, they're doing well. Most of them, or a lot of them, and F3 are losing money, but they're just in it because they have to, as a race team, they have to be there. It's a bit of a flagship for their company, and they can sell drives elsewhere. So to cut a long story short, it is a gentleman's sport in a way. And it started that way, you know. You had people making cars from scratch back in the day. And what they did is they showcased their car. They showed it off, saying, look, this is the car I've built. And then all of a sudden, I've got the fastest car. And then it became a competition. More people built cars, and they put cars against cars, and it became a race. That just developed. Then all of a sudden, a couple of drivers come who could drive better than the people that built the cars. So then he had race drivers. You know, I want this person to drive my car because they can get more out of it, and it makes the car look quicker. The sport started to get momentum, obviously, or become a sport, but the money was still always a factor. And it always will be, really, unless we completely change the system and we magically get money from somewhere else to pay for things. But that's not going to happen soon. So as a driver, you're in the painful situation where you need to find that cash to pay these people and get the car to the track and compete. And everything costs loads of money, even the race suit, helmets. You know, you're spending like $5,000 on that nowadays, maybe more. It depends what you're in. So you need money from outside. That's where it gets interesting, because if you're from a working class or less, or even middle class, it's difficult to get the cash because of these tens, hundreds, thousands, if not millions that you need to race. And I hear it. I was there just like you. Started with absolutely nothing, from a house. Well, I was born in a house that was supplied by the council, by the government, because we couldn't afford a house. It's called a council estate in England. And we built up, but still, when I was a 17-year-old wanting to race, it was just my cash, no one else's. So I had to deliver pizzas. I worked in a factory. I worked as a mechanic. I did anything I could. Jobs, you know, part-time jobs here, there, and everywhere to chase this dream. And obviously, people told me about sponsorship, and I didn't have a clue about it. Just getting companies to pay for your racing. That sounds amazing, but it's very selfish. When you're a driver, you're very selfish in a way that it's like, I want you to pay for my racing. I'll give you a sticker on the car. So the money they're giving you really doesn't balance the benefits that you're giving them. It's a very one-way partnership. And that's often why it's so hard to sell, right? Because companies now, they go they've got so many options for them to advertise, if that's what you're going for, and branding. You know, they can have a website. That's 101. They can use Facebook advertising, Google ads, YouTube adverts. There's so many things they can do now to hit the masses in such a cheap way. So they can reach thousands of potential new clients and customers for 10, 20, 30, 100, maybe $1,000 pounds. But on the other side, you get a race driver coming to them saying, right, give me 50 grand and I'll give you a sticker on the car. And maybe you might get one client if they just happen to see you and they just need your service at that particular time. It's not very targeted. Today, you have to be a lot more switched on in order to get sponsorship. In fact, it's never been any different. They've always had like yellow pages, advertising in papers to people, the kind of people that would be interested in their products. So it's always been difficult. Prices have gone up now, so it gets a bit out of hand now. When before you could sell your own house and pay for an F3 drive, it's a bit more difficult now to do that. So it is hard. So what I want to run through today is, because there's, you know, I could sit here and tell you how to get sponsorship, but really it's the mistakes that people are making that causes them to fail in getting sponsorship. I did the same. Most drivers have. So I just want to share with you 5 top mistakes that I've come up with. There's many more that I just want to make sure you're not doing, and to make sure that your game is good, your sponsorship game. So let me run them through. Let me run you through them now, just to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that people and race drivers are making. Number 1, the first mistake that drivers make is they're not understanding the basics. Kind of touched on it just now, but understand why a company would sponsor, and also understand what a company needs. If I was to ask you now, what does a company need? Answer me. You'd probably say cash. You'd probably say customers, clients, to get their name out. Well, to get their name out is in order to get the cash, right? So it all comes down to that bottom line, is every company needs cash in order to survive and thrive and beat their competition. It's their score. It helps. It's their bloodline. So when you look at a company, what I see a lot of race drivers not doing is asking themselves, how can I give that company more money? How can I help them increase their income, their turnover? And then using the sport, whatever they're in, the motorsport, obviously, to answer that question. And I want that just to sit with you for a moment, because this is the same whether you're selling a product to a company outside of motorsport, completely not related, whether you're selling sponsorship in different sports, if you've got a product that you're trying to push to the market, it's always, okay, what does the end person that I am going to target, what's the most important thing to them? Cash, or being happy, or getting from A to B, whatever product you're selling. But for us in motorsport, when you're going for sponsorship, it's how can I help them earn more cash? Right. You start with that. You look at the sport and you think, right, what can this sport do for them in order to do that? So then it starts to, then you just brainstorm. Then you get a blank piece of paper and you see how people have done it. You look at case studies where sponsors have said it really worked because it did this for us. And there's plenty on the internet. Or even phone up companies and say, right, I'm a university student and I'm doing some research on sports sponsorship. I saw that you have partaken in quite a lot of sports sponsorship. I want to know, what did you get from it? And if you ask enough people, company owners, CEOs, marketing departments, that you'll get 1 or 2, hopefully 10, if you ask enough of them, tell you what they got out of it, how it worked, or if it didn't work. And you start to understand, and I've done this myself when I really got into this, you start to understand why they did it and why they do it again. And then it tells you straight there, that's what I'm going to offer companies from now on. They will tell you 3 or 4 things that they got from it. It's like, right, brilliant. I understand now. Now I've just got to develop a package that offers that to companies as well. And you can use them as case studies. You can use their quotes by saying, you know, AT&T had a successful partnership with a NASCAR team. This is what they got out of it. So you kind of, it's part of your speech then, your spiel, your sales pitch. So so yeah, before I get carried away, it's understanding the basics of a company needs this, which is cash. And I know that motorsport can provide them with cash or potential for getting more cash in these 2 or 3 ways. So as an example, if it's a really high profile championship, then simple exposure on a car, on an F1 car, on a NASCAR, on an Indy car, that exposure alone, yeah, okay, that's got some value. They might go for that. But also you've got the hospitality side of it. If these big corporations can take their clients, their staff, their potential clients, and have like a network meeting at a big race event, as well as being on the side of the car, and it helps schmooze new deals out of people for them, they might just entertain that. So motorsport does have these benefits and features that can provide them with cash. And even if it's experiences, like they can drive your race car. If we're coming down a bit smaller now, so smaller championships, when you're going to go for smaller companies, all right, we're going to do corporate hospitality and entertainment days. So you sort them out, suites at race weekends, you get the price, you put a bit of fat on that, so you earn money from it. So if a hospitality unit at Donington Park at the British Touring Car meeting costs 10 grand, you go out and sell it for 12, 13, 14. You make sure they have a good time. And it's like a bit of a network meeting or just entertainment for them. Okay, so that's just one way. You're just selling hospitality. You can use your race car as a corporate entertainment. If it's got a spare seat in it, you do passenger rides, you give them a track day, and it can be a one-on-one tutorial or teaching day of how to race with a race driver, and you're earning cash off that. That's kind of part sponsorship, but it could be part of your sponsorship deal, is they can bring their 10 top salespeople or even 3 top salespeople, and you entertain them for the day. They drive a race car around a track. And if you're hiring a car or using your race car, using your a track day, which only costs like £300, €300 a day, it makes sense. So just start to think on this level. It's not a sticker on a car. Get away from that. Hardly ever have they just said, have this, all I want is a sticker on the car. It doesn't happen very often unless you've got eyeballs on you. So for the smaller championships, that really doesn't wash. So all the other stuff I just spoke about does if you're in a smaller championship. Or if you are in a smaller championship, you think, right, how can I earn a company more money? You either aim for very small companies who can give you 500, 1,000, and you know you can get them clients for that much. That's nice because you haven't got much of a big bill to pay for small championships. Or you go out and sell a bigger championship that you're not even in. You go to a higher profile championship, you say to the driver or the team, or you ask them, how much for that space on the car? Can I sell sponsorship for you and I get a 10%, 15% commission on anything I sell? Yes, you can earn money that way and spend that on your racing. So there's always a way to get around this and to hustle your way through, as long as you remember the one basic question: how can I earn companies more money? Not how can I get somebody to pay for my racing? It's how can I earn them more money? And in turn, you earn. Mistake number 2 is sending out shoddy cold call proposals. This is something else I did. And most people have. They've sent out an email, if that's what you call a proposal, an actual proposal they've spent money on and time on creating. I was using a typewriter at one point. I used to go to the library in Birmingham, Central Library, and there used to be a book out there called Hollis. I don't think it's going now. Anyone who's listened to videos in the past, I have mentioned this before a few times, but the Hollis book was a whole list. It was really thick. It was a whole book showing everybody who's sponsoring, or most people that are sponsoring within sport, and it had their details, their contact details, and who they're sponsoring and how much money they've put in. So I took it upon myself because you couldn't really, well, you could buy the book, but it was something like £70, and I couldn't afford £70. So I went to the library each day, would handwrite, because you didn't really have a camera, you couldn't really take photos of books back then, you didn't have a phone, handwrite all the contact details of the companies I thought would fit or have sponsored motorsport in the past. And then I wrote to them using a typewriter. I wrote to them and offered them sponsorship packages, basically. Didn't get very far. I don't think one person said yes. And I was doing this for over a year or so, just constantly writing. Then my proposals got a bit nicer. I'd show them when the computers come along, I'd show them what the car looked like. But again, I was just selling the sticker on the car more than anything else, and a bit of hospitality. But I wasn't thinking on like, okay, we could do product sampling at the race circuits. I wasn't even thinking on that level. But that's another thing. It's like, how can I, if you can say that there's 10,000 people at this race weekend, even if it's not a race weekend you're racing at, 20,000 people, and they could be your customers, and we're going to hand out samples of your product to a company, that again is worth money, by the way, just to go back to the previous point. So yeah, sending out crappy proposals, it doesn't really work, because you've heard it before when the people talk about CEOs and how busy they are. Their days are rammed. There's no white space on the calendar, on their diary. It's absolutely stacked. They've got people suing them. They've got problems with their staff. They've got problems at home. Every single day, they are crammed in their head. And yet they're trying to make the business successful. And then if this document comes through from a race driver with a sponsorship proposal, it's like, all this driver wants is my cash, and they'll throw it away. Even if they see it, they probably won't. You probably won't get it, because it is junk mail to them. Everybody's after their money. When you own a company, everybody's trying to pull from you, sell to you. So you get very used to just saying no to everything. It could be insurance companies. It could be people offering to better your website. They're just coming left, right, and center through email and mail. So when you send a proposal, it's like the last thing somebody wants. Even if they're into motorsport, it's like, doesn't really fit, man. I haven't got time for this, because they see it as a donation. They don't see it as a way of growing their company, motorsport, unless it's worded differently, unless your approach is different. So I really want you to reframe and save your time, and don't spend any more time sending out proposals that are cold calls and just hoping someone will come back. Now, once in a million, you'll hear somebody say, it worked for me. But we've got to talk about odds here and how to best spend your time. Because if you're just sending out proposal after proposal, just cold call, you never really know if they see it. And when I say cold call, I mean you're just sending it to them with no warning or previous chat to them. It's not going to work. You can use your time much better by going to meet people at network meetings. I think they're starting to open up now. By introducing yourself as a company that helps companies grow through sport. And all you want to do is have a coffee with them to explore how sport could help their company grow. And you're going to a company completely curious to see what it is they want and to see if motorsport can offer that. So the best way to do a proposal is really, it's like a prospectus. It's like showing them. It's like a brochure, really. But that's after you've met them. First of all, you have like a one-pager saying, you know, you develop a one-pager brochure showing that you're helping companies, or it's your goal. You can be just blatantly obvious. It's your goal to help companies through sport, and you're just researching it to get information. And then you can put together a package or a brochure or perspective to say, you know what, motorsport can offer you these things. This is after the meeting. You send it via email after. Motorsport can offer you these things by doing X. And if they're interested, then it becomes a proper proposal. So don't start your relationship or your pitch with just sending out proposals. It's more like, no, I want to get in front of people. I want to network. I want to be curious to find out what companies need. And then just to see, just like them, I'm curious, just like them, if motorsport can offer that then. And if it's maybe a higher profile end part of motorsport that can offer them, and I'll sell them that. Or if it's my own racing, I'm in the car. But really, you being in the car is kind of irrelevant. What I don't want you to do is send out proposals saying, hi, I'm Billy Smith and I am 23 years old and I want to be a champion. Come along with the journey with me. And I'll give you a sticker on the car. That's not going to sell. Come away from that. Really, you've got to not be selfish. You've got to say, right, what is it that these people want? I've got to provide it. And in the end, I'll get mine. I'll get what I want, but it's not what I want first and then a little bit of you, what you get. Get away from that. It's what most sponsors do. It's what I did, and it didn't work. Every driver you talk to has probably done the same. They've just gone in there saying, I'm a race driver, come and join me, or you can earn off my career, which is great if you're going somewhere. If you're like, you know, you're on a junior F1 program, you've won a lot, and then people can see that you're going to get to F1, then it becomes driver investment a bit more, a bit easier to sell. But until then, think about the company first. Mistake number 3 is drivers are not treating their sponsorship hunting as a full-time job. Not spending enough time on it, basically. It could be, okay, you might be at school, you might have work, you might have different things that are taking up your time. But if you want companies to offer you 4, 5, 6, 7 figure numbers to go racing, then I think you know deep down that this is going to take some time. This is going to take hours, effort, every single week, day, forcing this forward and spending as much time as your off time as you can dedicated to this. This is more important than going to the gym as a race driver. This is more important than going on the sim, believe it or not, because without the money, you can't race in the first place. If you're spending like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, going down the gym, trying to be the fittest driver, but you're not even racing, that's a waste. Them 2 hours should be spent on talking to companies, generating cash from them companies, building relationships, offering packages, building your company here, basically. And then once you get the money, you find out you're not fit enough, then go to the gym. That's fine. But you're not progressing by going to the gym if it's sacrificing your time finding the funding to go racing. It's got to be number 1 because you can't get on the track without it. Obviously, in the book, the Bible, I call it, when it comes to my sponsorship, because this is where I spent a long time on this. This is how to get sponsorship. It's not an advert, but I've said it in here so often, is you've got to spend the time. You've got to make this your craft. Everything in motorsport costs money. There's 8 ways in this book. I put 8 ways to get into a race car. Sponsorship is just one of them, but really all of them come down to you offering people something in order to get you in the car. Never come away from that, but that takes time. I mean, companies, side hustle, say this is going to be your side hustle and you can only spend like 10 hours a week on it. Fine, but because of work or whatever. How can we make that 15? How can we make that 20 hours if possible, and then structure it, get it into your diary every single day, not 20 hours a day, obviously, but over the week. How can I find that time? Can I sleep 1 hour less? If I'm already doing 9 hours, I can go to 7. That's 2 hours a day. That's 14 hours I've found to spend on sponsorship. Everybody can find more time. It seems impossible, but if you restructure things and prioritize things in a different way, spend a little bit less time on the games and on social media, you'd be surprised how easy it is to spend an hour on TikTok every other day, maybe, just by swiping, and you notice, damn, that could have been spent doing something so much more productive. These hours add up. If you add them up over a month of what you spent, I'm not just going to say on the phone, because I do that as well, but on the phone, doing stuff that you don't need to do, doing stuff that's not really pushing you forward in that area. So if you're doing Call of Duty and you're saying it's really good because I'm doing Call of Duty and it's building my skills, my reflexes, and I do a bit of streaming, so you never know, that might take off. Fair enough. But right now, what's more important? Can you put Call of Duty down for a while and then 7 hours a month used for sponsorship? Maybe. Or there'll be something else that you're spending time on that you can come back on and then put it towards sponsorship. So you got to make sure it's a full-time job if you want to do this. And there's a lot of drivers that go racing on the weekend from like Thursday to Sunday. And that's only 10 weekends a year. And then as soon as Monday comes, the business hat is on. They spend most Monday to Fridays selling, understanding what companies want, selling. And these are the guys that are actually getting sponsorship. And if it's a side hustle, never underestimate how powerful and effective a side hustle can be. Companies like Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Instagram, Under Armour, these were side hustles to start with. It wasn't their main thing. It was their side gig. It was a bit of a hobby or something they followed whilst they were trying to balance their studies or trying to balance their real job. And look how big these guys have come. You can do the same, but you have to dedicate the time. And then in that time, you have to work very effectively. You have to be so proactive, and every action does have a consequence, good or bad. It takes you forward towards what you want. Sponsorship, to get on that grid. So important. Mistake number 4, not understanding that this all takes time. So we've just spoken about time, obviously, but it's going to take time. So if you're really thinking, right, I need to get the sponsorship within a month or two to do this 100 grand championship, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, go for it, fine. Really cram them 2 months in and find out what you can do and push like hell. But in all honesty, you're probably better off thinking about later on in the year, start racing, or next year. So a whole year of generating sponsorship, of making contacts. You got to be so patient. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Because when we want it too quick, it puts stress on. You don't do a good job. You take shortcuts and you don't really end up with it. But when you say, right, I've got 12 months to get this money in, to make the contacts, I'm going to hold myself accountable every week. I'm going to make sure that I maximize every day and every week. And then you build that as you go. It's amazing how you allow yourself to succeed so much better then. But having this patience where you work like crazy on the day, but you can see that the goal only gently comes closer and it takes time. It's like the duck in water, right? The legs are going mad underneath the water, but you see the duck above water and it looks very serene and slow. That's kind of what it's like to succeed. But you've got to have the patience and the foresight to say to yourself and to have the faith that you know that the actions you're taking, how hard it is now, it's getting me closer. But you can't rush these things, because trying to cram, do a contract, takes time. Back and forth with a company can take a month. Finding a company takes time. That can take months. That's a prospective one that is actually going to start talking to you, selling them, giving them what they want, finding out how you can provide that benefit to them within the championship, getting people on board to help. This all takes time. But I noticed that a lot of drivers, entrepreneurs as well in the business world, they don't have the patience for this. So then they start to lose hope, lose belief. Their work ethic drops because they're thinking every little thing I do is not really making a difference, but it is. You're kind of building a house, right? The house is sponsorship, but each brick is an action. You have to take so many actions in order to build that sponsorship house. It takes time and it takes people helping you, the plumber, the electrician, effectively. So stay patient. Know that sometimes you got to put your dream just a little bit further, because you're going to have more chance of succeeding then, instead of having it right here. I've got to do it now and then failing. Mistake number 5, a driver's not starting small. As I touched upon there, we want to go too big too fast. If you're a driver, you want to be a driver, you have not yet, and you think, right, I'm going to start off in Formula 4. Well, Formula 4 in Europe costs about 350,000 euro. A lot of cash. You've got none maybe, or not enough for that. How are you just going to jump in? And not only that, how are you going to get a top team to be interested in you when you've got not much money and not much pedigree? They're not going to be interested. They're going to choose the karting world champion or the driver who's in his second year and won a few races last year. So you're going to get the car that's the 5th car. You're going to get the trainee engineer. You're going to spend all this money on something that's substandard, right? So it's rushed. So again, I want you to focus on championships you can get into. You can hustle your way in. If it's like a 20, 30, 50 grand championship in dollars, it's possible for anybody in this world to earn that kind of money over the next year. Like I said in the previous video, you break down that 50 grand over the season, over the year. What's that mean per month? What's that mean I've got to earn per week? How can I do that? How can I generate that money myself? How can I get 30 small sponsors, 30 tiny sponsors giving like $1,000 each maybe for the year? Sure, you can sell that. That's when I say think small. If you can get lots of companies giving small amounts and you're giving them something that's worth $2,000, you're getting them one client, that clients are worth $2,000, but they're only paying you $1,000. Or you can get them clients that are worth $5,000 to their pocket, but you're only charging them $1,000. It's an easier sell. So if you've got a car at the minute, you're in a good championship and you've got some white space on the car, you've got some space with no sponsors, and you think normally that should be about a 60 grand spot there on the car, but I'm going to go and sell it for 10 grand just to make sure I can get somebody on the car. And then I can upsell them for the year after. I can make a relationship. I can show them the amount of benefits they're getting from the side of this car. And it's not just that they come into the races. I'm giving them some corporate entertainment. I'm introducing them to other sponsors on my car. So it's a B2B relationship. They're going to go again. And they've only paid 10 grand. You wouldn't have had that 10 grand in the first place. You just got a white space on the car. So always come down to, okay, I know I've got big things in mind and I'm selling these big packages. How can I bring things down a bit smaller? So that's relative to everybody. If you're starting out, smaller championship, lots of sponsors. And if you're already racing, how can I get a few small sponsors on just to start the relationships for the long term? Bleeds into what I spoke about as well, having a long vision. As you can see, these are the kind of mistakes or areas I'm talking about that are kind of obvious, but when you're in it, you can't see it. All you're thinking about is racing, getting money in. How can I do it? It's very selfish, like I said. Instead, go back through these mistakes that I've just said and have them as finger posts showing you how to get sponsorship. So just to review it, the first thing is understand the basics. Companies want money, cash, customers, clients. I've got to show them how they can do that through motorsport. The second thing, sending out crappy cold call proposals. Have an elevator pitch. Have a way of introducing yourself to a company that's not a cold call. You're there to do research. You want to find out how people got value from motorsport sponsorship or anything, or what a company actually needs, and see if the sport can do that instead of just showing a proposal and it looks like a donation to them. Mistake number 3, not treating this like a full-time job. Put the hours in. Mistake number 4, not understanding it's going to take time. And mistake number 5, not starting small. I hope this has given you some kind of insight and inspired you to change maybe the way you're doing things. If you've been trying to find sponsorship and not getting anywhere, let's think a bit broader. Let's see what the most drivers are doing that are failing and learn from it and apply it to your way of working. You have got all you need to get this cash in. All you need to do is do it the right way. Think about the company first. Offer them some kind of benefit that gets them what they want. You will get yours.